is up, everybody? Welcome into the Friday morning edition of the Daily Dime here at FTNFantasy.com. Running solo again here on a Friday. Zac Graham, a.k.a. Kawaisenberg, DFS. No Alex Blickle today, but we should have Alex back on Monday. And, of course, you can catch him on the NFL stream Sunday morning. How was everybody's Thursday? If you tuned into the Dime yesterday, you had a good night. 4 for 4 on the picks. Little 3-pick round robin on underdog. We'll take that headed into Friday. An NFL game was interesting. I hope that in your season-long leagues, you did not have as many Cooper Kupp shares as I did. No catches. I know on the prop side of things for us, Kittle hitting the over was big for some of the entries we have in for this weekend. But man, I think every season-long team that I have that did not get a bye had Cooper Kupp on it. So it's an uphill battle headed into the weekend. But yeah, the NBA side of props last night was good. DFS was fine. I don't know what happened with Jakob Poeltl. Maybe just had to poop. But to get ruled out, or wasn't technically ruled out, but didn't start and was listed doubtful after lock. And then 12 minutes later, oh yeah, checked into the game. It's a little bit of a whirlwind there. But let's see what we've got cooking here on Friday, because like I mentioned, we've kind of been waiting for Friday all week from a prop perspective, from a DFS perspective, to get away from these very, very small slates that we have with the NBA Cup knockout week here, because it's not just the two game slates with the quarterfinals, right? It's the showdown on Monday, just 3 games last night. And I like kind of having this bye week from a basketball perspective, right? I think it's a good way to describe it. It's like a bye week for most of these teams. But we don't like bye weeks when we're playing DFS. Hey, there's Dello. Good to see Dello in here. So I found, just before we get into the picks, I know that's what you're here for. I found an oddity this morning in the NBA schedule that made me think I was losing my mind for about 10 minutes here before the stream. The Nets and the Grizzlies play today. I guess that we can probably start there with the props. But looking at, and we want to look at Jaren Jackson Jr. here first. These teams have played twice already. Brooklyn in the East, Memphis in the West. What? Interconference matchups only happen twice a year. And so the almighty Google sets me straight once I get the right query in there. Apparently, when the Cup started last year, that forces one, and it makes sense, right? Because you get the extra games in here and the schedule shifts around. You get one interconference matchup where the teams play 3 times. And it happens to be Memphis and Brooklyn this year, and that game happens to be tonight. And I happen to be looking at Jaren Jackson Jr. and his points prop here. So we'll get a couple zooms. And let's get started in the prize picks tool here this morning. And again, I'm working mostly on underdog these days. I know the underdog picks right from the stream yesterday did great. And if you got those in on prize picks, you had a great night as well. And then we went after that Cade discount with a 6-pick entry. Didn't quite get there last night. But starting here with Jaren Jackson. So, again, taking on the Nets here tonight. They are 10-point home favorites. Are the Grizzlies, 228.5 implied total. And you can see in the model here, Jaren Jackson's here on the first page. His points prop is set at 18.5. And I want to take the higher than selection here on 18.5. And he's averaging basically 22 points per game on the season. He's at 21.9. But, unless you haven't been paying attention to the Grizzlies this season, you know just as well as I do that this team has been somewhat or severely shorthanded in some cases, really throughout the first quarter of the season here. So I think, taking into account the fact that this team is mostly healthy tonight, Zach Edey is doubtful, so he's on the mend. And we still, of course, don't have any Vince Williams or G.G. Jackson. And we know Coach Jenkins is running still very, very flat rotations. But we've got him projected for 21.4 points here in the model. So almost a full 3 points over that line. And he's over this number in 17 of his 23 appearances this year. So, who's the number one option, the number one usage suck on this team when they're all healthy? It's Ja Morant. So 12 games with Ja Morant this season, and Triple J is still over this number in 7 of those 12. And again, you're looking at the matchup individually, I don't look on paper and say I want to attack Nick Claxton or really just this front court as a whole. But I think I'm going to trust the model here. I'm going to trust that this number, because again, on the surface, this is a number that stuck out to me as 18.5 for Triple J. I know he's been averaging over 20 this year. So I feel pretty good about Jaren Jackson Jr. over 18.5 points here this morning. But let's get into the second pick here. And we're actually just taking 3 picks right off the first page of the tool here this morning. And I have my eye on a particular steals prop. I'm hopeful that we get the stocks props posted on Underdog here while I'm live. Might have to circle back around on that after we talk about the DFS slate a little bit. But here, let's go to Denver and the Clippers. This is at Mile High, with the elevation there in Denver. It's the Pepsi Center now, I think. 6.5 point home favorites are the Nuggets, 227.5 implied total. But I want to go to the other side. Let's look at Norm Powell. And you can see on Prize Picks that Norm Powell points prop set at 21.5. And the tool loves it. We've got him projected for 24.6 points here in the model. He's averaging 23.6 on the season. He's over in 12 of his 18 games. Of course, Normie has missed some time here earlier this season, but they've also already played the Nuggets twice. And again, different variations of the Nuggets and who was healthy and who wasn't, but 37 and 28 points in those first 2 meetings this season. So I like Norm Powell higher than 21.5 points, but that's on Prize Picks. On Underdog right now, he's at 20.5. And of these 3 props that I'm going to talk about here right off the top this morning, I think that is the one that will probably come up the fastest on Underdog. So I'd make sure to get this one in. And I think of these 3, this is my favorite prop that we have that I'm going to talk about here this morning. No Terrence Mann, no Derek Jones Jr. So bolsters the minutes floor a little bit here, I think, for Norm. So over 20.5 for Norm Powell here this morning on Underdog. And again, if that goes up to 21.5, I still like it, because the model does as well at 21.5. That's what it is pulling in here from Prize Picks. It's rare, I feel like, that we get a more friendly points prop on Underdog compared to Prize Picks. So interested to see how that one goes throughout the day, but feeling very good about that this morning. And then, get a sip here. And then we're going to the top pick in the model here. Now this stands out as maybe it's a little bit hot right now in terms of this projection. It's Brandon Miller, Hornets in Chicago taking on the Bulls. Bulls are 6.5 point home favorites here, 232 implied total. That's tied for highest on the night with Washington and Cleveland, where you see the Cavs has 17 point home favorites there, even with the questionable Evan Mobley. So back here to Charlotte, Brandon Miller. Okay, we've got Miles Bridges on the mend. We've got the injury report pulled up here. Why don't we can go through some of this together, right? LaMelo's still out. Trey Mann's still out. Of course, Grant Williams underwent ACL surgery this week. We got Tijon Salon and Miles Bridges questionable. I would lean that both of them play, and a stronger lean in on Bridges. We've got Bridges projected in. Brandon Miller projecting for just a hair shy of 5 made threes in the FTN fantasy projections here this morning. That line is set at 3.5. So let's dig a little bit deeper. He's averaging exactly 4 made threes per game on the season. But he's over this number in just 9 of 20 appearances. And again, mentioned 6.5 point dogs here on the road to Chicago. Very healthy 232 implied total. But without LaMelo this season, right, a lot of usage and a lot of potential 3-point attempts are freed up. Gonna sneeze, hold on. Quick on that mute button. 6 games without LaMelo Ball this season. He's over in 4 of those 6 and averaging 13.3 attempts per game in that 6-game sample. And again, on the season, averaging 4 made threes per game on 11 attempts. So we're getting more than 2 attempts more per game on his average in that 6-game sample without LaMelo. We can open up our full projections here. We can see how many attempts the model is giving him. Right? 13.5 attempts. 4.98 makes. It's in line with what we've been seeing. And the Bulls, not the dregs of the league in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. And they're actually middle of the pack in terms of opponent 3-point percentage, but they are 6th highest in terms of 3-point attempts given up, 3-point attempts allowed. So I'm with the model here. Again, I don't necessarily think that I'm on board with a projection of a full 5 made threes as his baseline projection here, but higher than 3.5 feels really good as well, even if you're not as high on it as the projections are here. So that's my 3 pick here for this morning. Jaren Jackson Jr. higher than 18.5 points. Norman Powell higher than 20.5 points. And Brandon Miller higher than 3.5 made threes. We've also got ladder opportunities on Underdog for all of those numbers. You can get 19.5 for Triple J, 1.11x. Norman Powell, though, 1.46x for higher than 24.5 points. Okay. That doesn't make me, I don't turn my nose up at that. Brandon Miller, higher than 4.5 made threes, 1.43x. 2.54x for higher than 5.5 made threes. So looking at what Miller has done this season. Higher than 4.5 made threes in 8 of his 20 games. Higher than 5.5 made threes in 5. Higher than 6.5 in 4. 4.94x. Higher than 6.5 made threes for Brandon Miller. I may be laddering those Brandon Miller threes here. Let's get a refresh. We'll get a search for the stocks. See Anthony Gregory in here talking to Dello, says, yo, Mike, where are them college picks, bro? I don't know, Dello. Where are the college picks? Oh, we might have, I think we have stocks. P-Buck in here saying, Wemby 4.5 stocks, sign me up. I agree on the surface. As you well know, Preston. Short-handed Spurs here tonight. We've got Wemby projected actually for a hair shy of that 4.5 stocks number. So let's see what else they got. First, I want to check out the steals. Do we have Bub Carrington? We do not. Bummer. For what it's worth, on Prize Picks, at least earlier this morning, Bub Carrington was posted with a steals prop of a half steal. Can't type Bub Carrington in. Silly. That's like me. I will frequently type Wemby into search bars. I will type, what are some other ones? I type nicknames in there all the time. But so if that Bub Carrington steals prop is still up over there on Prize Picks, we've got him for 1.3 steals here. He's averaging exactly 1 steal per game on the season. Still shorthanded Wizards team. I do like that if it pops anywhere. All right, so we got, those are all steals. Let me see the stocks together first. Alex Sarr is back against Cleveland. Plus money there. Got him for 2.85. He's 1.21x at 2.5. We'll file that one away. Jay, Nick Claxton, Anthony Davis, Gobert. Bassey, 1.08x. No Zach Collins tonight. Coming up short there. Go to the blocks. I know this is just riveting content for you guys watching me go through these boards here. I see our good buddy the Brewmaster, Steelers going down this weekend. I would love to be able to talk mess back, and maybe they pull it out. I am also on the Eagles, unfortunately. That offense with no George Pickens, man. It can beat the Browns. I don't know about the Eagles. We'll see. Mike says, I think you got the wrong guy. Yeah, I was thinking he's probably talking about Randall. You can get all of Mike Randall's college picks at ftnfantasy.com. Oh, P-Buck. We want to do this? He says, Maxey, higher than 5.5 first quarter points, 1.11x. Mama didn't raise no pussy. Maybe. Maybe. Going up against the Pacers. I don't know. It's a lot to... It's tougher for me to do that on the surface with Embiid back, with Paul George back. But maybe that opens things up more for Maxey. Anthony's my bad. All good, dude. All good. A lot of mics around here. Dello, you just got to change your YouTube name to Dello Dello. So Wemby 3.5 blocks. 1.1x. And I know we have him for, I think it was 3.3. He's averaging 3.4 on the year. He's only gone over 3 blocks in 4 of 19 appearances this year. He's got 11 games with exactly 3. So it's not when I'm jumping out of my chair to slam in here. We might have just seen Norm Powell's go up to 21.5. Let's see. It's grayed out for me. Norm. Okay, so his points prop is down. So I hope you got that 3 pick in there with the 20.5 number. Again, if it reposts at 21.5, I'm still good with it. Let's turn our attention to the DFS slate. Maybe we get some fantasy score props before we're done. But we've got our 3 pick in there. So let's see what we'll get a refresh here. See what the ownership is looking like. See what the model likes in terms of the GPP scores. We'll start with DK. As I expected, Justin Champagny in his own tier here in the GPP scores this morning. 4,500 on DraftKings small and power forward eligible, just 15% projected owned. If we don't get news in favor of opening up more value throughout the day, I think that number does come up. And if it doesn't, then I will be way over the field on Justin Champagny. Still a very short-handed Wizards team. No Kuzma, no Kispert, no Brogdon. Again, Sarr's back. But I think we still get big minutes here out of Champagny. Projected for 30 minutes. And 17-point dogs. He could run blowout. Let me actually see what they did last time out. I don't remember if they got run off the court or not. Typically, that's the outcome with this roster. Yeah, they got beat by 28. Yeah, and it's hard to get away from Justin Champagny this morning. And keep in mind, it's not out of the question to run a Champagny Brothers lineup tonight. Spurs are shorthanded as well. I guess you can't do it on DraftKings, of course. Of course. If you're going to split this slate, DK, run the main 5 gamers, end it at 8, and then give us a 3-game slate for the late instead of the 2. Just silly. But last game that they played was all the way back on the 8th, so Sunday, right? Champagny plays 34 minutes. The only starter to play past like the 9-minute mark of the last quarter, 8.5-minute mark. Played the entire fourth. It was him, Davis, Gill, Butler, Bagley. Closed that one. Then again with Sarr back, you're dinging Bagley, you're dinging Gill. I still think Champagny gets the start here. So he looks great as a value. It doesn't feel great. He projects really well. Maybe. Let me just filter for Washington here. Maybe we see J-Val get another start here going up against the Cavs. Evan Mobley's status might impact that. Projection's not loving J-Val. The field is, though. Highest owned player on this team. Almost a quarter of the field. But right now, Champagny is really the only guy that I have a ton of interest in from that Washington side. And then Cleveland, of course, if Mobley is out, we're going to take a much longer look at the remaining starters. Right, Jarrett Allen at 6,800. Going to look pretty good then. You get some usage spread around to Garland, to Spida. No Strus. Strus was supposed to come back, and then yesterday they gave us the old okie doke. So no Strus again. If you're missing Mobley, then I think we're looking at the entirety of this Cleveland team in a little bit of a better light on DraftKings. Mitchell, LeVert, Garland all picking up double-digit ownership, and that's with Mobley projected in. And it's a lock game. So we'll see how many conviction type of plays we can get from the Cleveland side. By the time we get to lock, we'll have that news. I'm glad you brought this one up, Preston. Dante DiVincenzo, 3.9K. Is he just cheeks now? Maybe. Me and Fife were talking about Dante on the fast break on Monday. He's in horrible. Relative to expectation. This is a guy on his career, 42, 37, 77. This year, 35, 32, 75. I just don't get that. He can't. He's a 40% from 3 guy 2 straight years. Last year with Golden State. 1 year with the Knicks. And now 32% on 6.5 threes. But as I said, I'm glad you brought that up, P-Buck, because he was in my placeholder last night. And I kind of teased what my placeholder was in the chat this morning. I think Embiid at 9,500 against the Pacers We also talked about on yesterday's fast break the fact that the Sixers favored by 5.5 at home against the Pacers. 6.5 now. So 9,500 for Embiid. I'm in tonight. To your point on Dante, though, 3,900 point and shooting guard eligible. I think a lot of these guys in the 4K range for Minnesota make some sense as things stand now. Again, if we get more value opening up, then we'll probably go away from some of these guys. But as things stand now, Jaden McDaniels, and the guy who probably should be picking up the most ownership of this trio, 16%, 4K, small forward. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker, guard forward. Dante, point and shooting guard, 38, 3,900 respectively. Not ignored right now, both picking up right at 10% ownership, but going up against this Lakers team that can't stop anybody, especially when Anthony Davis is off the floor. Wolves 9-point home favorites, just disgusting. 213 total. It's 12 points lower than the next lowest total on this slate. And that's the full slate. If we just narrow it down to the DraftKings slate, 14.5 points behind the field in terms of the implied total in this game. It was really tough to get to the Lakers side, but that is how I like to attack it. That's how I was attacking it in my placeholder last night, is with kind of mixing and matching those three 4K-ish Wolves. You know, I think you can make a case for Naz Reid as well at 4,600, right? Mike Conley, if we didn't get a lot more, really any other usable value. But I think it's a good call by you. Right? And like, of those guys between Dante and Jaden and NAW, who has the highest ceiling? Model says Jaden. He's certainly going to get the most opportunity from a minutes perspective. Like, if Dante gets hot, 3,900 is really cheap. And he was in my placeholder, so it's a good call out. Let's see what Philly's looking like. Okay, 19% coming into Embiid at 9,500. Relatively muted GPP score here. I don't know, man. I like it. I like the $9,500 Embiid tonight. And I think we have some decision points here. And I made my decision in the placeholder. But you've got the three top-end centers here tonight. $3,000 premium to get up to Jokic. I think that's absolutely worth it tonight. And I made it work in my placeholder, pairing Embiid and Jokic. But actually, so going back now, this was very late at night when I threw this together. I had three of those Minnesota guys in there. I had Dante, I had Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I had Naz Reid. Some of the other values, like Vasile Micic, we haven't talked much about the Charlotte-Chicago game outside of the Brandon Miller prop talk. But Micic at 5,100 once again looks very, very strong as a value as things stand now. Like, I know if you have been on the Micic train last season, this season, like, there are times when he burns you, but the minutes are so solid, and for the price, he's still way too cheap. Where's he at? I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but okay, so the field is there, right? A third of the field on Micic right now. And from the wide view, it's the highest projected owned player on the slate, so certainly not a hot take here. Anthony says Philly has been so trash this year. Yes, they have, but they also haven't been healthy. And I think not only the fact that we saw Joel Embiid, like, I'm not going to say he came out and looked like MVP caliber Joel Embiid over the last two games. He didn't. Like, the 35 he had against Memphis was, I don't know, it was kind of like meandering. Like, I wasn't impressed. But then I thought he looked better against Chicago. 13 of 28 from the field and like 28 shots. Like, that is Embiid type of usage. We know he can still get the calls. He went to the line 14 times against Memphis. 35 and 33 minutes, thereabouts, in those two games. So if we're getting into the low, maybe mid-30s for Embiid if this game stays competitive, I don't know, man. It's like, it's daily fantasy. We can't just look at what a team has done all year and apply it completely to what lies in front of us here tonight. I like Embiid a lot. And again, it's not a hot take. 20% of the field is there. But Jokic at 12.5, man, like he's averaging over 70 DK points per game on the season. I know we were already discussing that in the chat this morning. I don't feel great about the placeholder, like the value pieces that are in there, but I could also, like, I don't have Champagny in there. I could easily maneuver that. Take out the Westbrook was my last guy in at 6,300, thinking that Jamal Murray could sit again, who's questionable. I think there's enough ways to get both of those guys in there tonight. And again, if news breaks where we lose some of these higher name valuable questionable guys, or we get injuries that or inactives that we don't even know about here this morning, pairing Embiid and Jokic feels pretty nice tonight. Card says, we all know Anthony has him locked in already, of course. And he says, getting that trade value up. I don't think so, man. I don't think anybody else is going to take that extension on. The extension that hasn't kicked in yet? I don't think so. I do think it's a little interesting. We see, like, some of these names. Miles Bridges, people going right to him if he's in. I get it, but a little hesitant there. I want to see, like, are we going to have a minutes limit coming back? We've only got him in for 27. He is 6K with no LaMelo. So I get that. Norm Powell, 6,300 guard forward eligible. Also totally get that. We could see that Jonas number come down if he doesn't start. Aaron Gordon, 5,500. That is not bad at all either on this slate. Jordan Miller, 3,600. Shorthanded on the wing there. Definitely in play. And an interesting pivot off of some of those Minnesota guys I was talking about. But maybe not so much at the 20%. Didn't talk about Anthony Davis that much, right? Like, he is in, I think, one of the ultimate, like, boom bust type of spots relative to his salary. 11K flat, like, traditionally, he has mashed Rudy Gobert, at least from a fantasy standpoint. Did not happen that way last time these two teams played. And no LeBron tonight. Again, they're 10-point dogs. 9-point dogs, excuse me. But the disgusting 213 total. If the slate started right now, I'm probably under the field on 20% owned Anthony Davis. And loading up my center shares at the top end with Embiid and with Jokic. But of course, there's slate winning upside for Anthony Davis with no LeBron, if they can keep it competitive. You know, maybe also paying attention to a guy like KPJ. See Batum there, 15%, 3,100. I think that goes away as more things open up throughout the day. Let's check in real quick on FanDuel. Jokic, the top GPP score over there. He did make it into my placeholder at 12.8. There's decisions to make over there. FanDuel certainly makes it harder when you're looking at those front court guys, the center only guys. Run a real quick refresh on Underdog. Do I have any fantasy score props up? Or did Norm Powell come back with his points? Aha! They reposted 20.5 points with the 0.92x. And they're not giving us a 21.5 option. Bastards. Fantasy. There's Ian in the chat. Money Making Friday. I know Ian's a Lakers fan, so hopefully he didn't hear me just disparaging them earlier. On FanDuel, Jokic up top. Vooch, actually, who is questionable. Like, you talk about some value that could open up. Jalen Smith with no Vooch. Sign me up. I imagine like 50%, maybe more of the field would sign themselves up as well. So, but again, like those are some of the types of Q tags that we're waiting on here. Ownership wise, also, I mean, Austin Reeves upgraded to questionable. If he sits, then we're looking at the Lakers. Kind of the other nasty pieces that remain there. But if he's in 5,800, GPP scores love him. He was also in my placeholder on FanDuel. Mathurin 6,100, 1% owned. I can get why he's popping a little bit in the projections, or the GPP scores rather. Ownership wise, yeah, so you get the two late games here, right? You get the Spurs and the Blazers. You get the Suns and the Jazz. Suns, really tough to get to anything with Durant and Nurkic back. But Spurs, no Castle, no Zach Collins, no Keldon Johnson. All right, so I'm probably going to play some late slate on DK tonight. But on the main on FanDuel, right, Chris Paul almost 50% on 6,500. Totally get it. I'm not running the other direction from that ownership, especially because there's not a ton of standout value right now on FanDuel compared to DK, at least through my run through the slate. Anthony Davis with the power forward eligibility picking up 40%. He's second there. I get it. Garland 6,700, potentially no Mobley. Sohan and Vassell. It's tough, man. At this point, I'm just rambling, and we can probably shut the stream down here pretty soon. But if Sohan gets back into that starting lineup, you want all the Sohan you can get. And I think he's in play even if he comes off the bench again. But we're going to get a change to that Spurs starting lineup because Castle is out. So Paul, Champagny, right? Julian, right? It's Justin on the Wizards, Julian on the Spurs, Harrison Barnes, Wemby, and who? It's either Vassell or Sohan, and whichever one gets into the lineup. Vassell did say, I want to say on Wednesday, spoke to the media, said he's still on somewhat of a minutes restriction, so maybe it is Sohan that slides in there. And you run that, bigger Spurs lineup there to start. Anything else that Cards goes, Eddie would be proud of the rambling. Yeah, well, get it from somewhere. Or maybe multiple places. My dad can drone on too. He actually made his podcast debut on a podcast down here in Central Texas the other day. And I joked to him. I said it was nice to be able to 2x you talking. So I get that some from him, but also, of course, the many years spent with our buddy Fast Eddie Fear on stream. All right, well, we can go ahead and shut it down. Again, if you're an FTN Fantasy subscriber, I'm going to put more picks that I find into the Pick'em Games chat throughout the day. Hopefully get one or two more. We'll get another, 3-pick round robin going here on Underdog. Maybe we can get up to 6, 7. Get a little 6-pick rotation in there as well. Coming off a good night. Let's string a second one together. We'll go back to back. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Daily Dime. Again, Sunday, NFL stream, 10 a.m. Eastern. Two-gun, Alex Blickle breaking down the Week 15 slate. Good luck, everybody, in any season-long playoff matchups you may have on the fantasy football side of things. And good luck tonight. I will see all the FTN Fantasy subscribers in the Discord throughout the day. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on this video. It helps us grow. The channel helps us grow the Daily Dime. And if you're watching over there on Twitter, like, repost the tweet. Wherever you're coming to us from, help support the channel. Help us grow the Daily Dime. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. I'll do the same. See you back here on Monday for another week of the Daily Dime. Goodbye.